Let me paint you a picture of what betrayal actually looks like. Imagine you spend 11 years climbing through mud and barbed wire for a company that sees you as reliable, smart, and irreplaceable, until one new guy walks in, calls himself a disruptor, and in 6 months, you're kicked to the curb without severance or so much as a thank you, just so he can give your position to his 23-year-old nephew who still lists Fortnite champion on his resume. That's exactly what happened to me. I'm Mark. I'm 38 now, but at the time this started, I was a 36-year-old account strategist working for a mid-sized media planning agency in Portland. Let's call it Hale and Cove. It wasn't Madison Avenue, but we had a good client list, regional banks, insurance companies, a couple of eco startups. I wasn't the flashiest guy in the room, but I had 3 things that made me stand out. I delivered results, I kept client churn near 0, and I was loyal. Like, stupidly loyal. Hale and Cove had grown bloated over the years, and the owners decided to bring in fresh air. Enter Dean Calloway, the new executive director of accounts, fresh off a 2-year sabbatical in Bali after cashing out of some crypto startup. 39, surfer haircut, overly white teeth, wore sneakers to meetings, and always called himself a vibes guy. I knew instantly he was going to be a problem. He walked in like he owned the building and immediately started streamlining inefficiencies, which in practice meant firing older employees, hiring young ones he could boss around, and preaching toxic positivity while stabbing people in the back. And of course, he had a plan for my department. Within the first week, he started reevaluating workflow. He asked me to document every single thing I did, contacts, strategies, even email templates, because, as he put it, transparency is the key to team resilience. Right. I should have seen the writing on the wall then. But I'd been through leadership shakeups before. I figured if I kept doing my job, I'd be fine. I didn't count on Brandon. Brandon was Dean's nephew, fresh out of some no-name marketing program with a LinkedIn profile that read like a BuzzFeed quiz. He was cocky, lazy, always late, and called every woman queen. Dean introduced him at our Monday stand-up like he was Zuckerberg's secret heir. He's going to shadow you, Mark, Dean said with that artificial, too-white smile. Learn from the master. For 6 weeks, Brandon sat in on every client call I had, taking notes, barely, smirking through strategy sessions, and asking dumbass questions like, why don't we just run this campaign on TikTok? For a life insurance client with a 60-plus demographic. Worse, he started calling my clients on his own. Just getting ahead of the curve, he'd say. One of my longest-standing clients, a regional credit union I'd managed for 5 years, actually called me to ask, who's the frat boy who keeps name-dropping you? When I brought it up to Dean, he waved it off. It's part of mentorship. You've got to let the kids flex a little. Yeah, he flexed all right. 2 weeks later, I got an invite to a casual sync with HR and Dean at 8:30 a.m. on a Friday. Everyone knows that's code for, we're firing you, but pretending it's friendly. Still, I showed up in a blazer, prepped like I was giving a TED Talk. Dean didn't even pretend. We're going in a new direction, he said, lacing his fingers together like a discount therapist. We're looking for someone who can speak Gen Z, someone more agile with modern media. Translation, we're giving your role to my idiot nephew because he has a TikTok. They offered me 2 weeks of pay. No severance. No job transition. I laughed in their faces and said I'd rather walk out broke than accept their hush money. And that was the end of my 11 years at Hale and Cove. Or so they thought. Because while Dean was busy buying barista-grade espresso machines for the lounge and giving his nephew my office, I was already quietly preparing the one thing that would nuke his entire career from orbit. Let me make something clear. I wasn't planning revenge at first. That came later, after the silence. After the humiliation of calling my wife to tell her I was suddenly jobless, and after the bizarre experience of hearing my replacement Brandon tell LinkedIn he was spearheading innovation strategy in legacy verticals. Whatever the hell that means. No. At first, all I felt was empty. 11 years of loyalty, growth, late nights, holidays skipped, and full weekends spent fixing account errors for clients gone. Tossed aside by some crypto-washed-out nepotism clown and a kid who thought CTR stood for can't touch reality. But I had one thing they didn't, a memory like a vault. And access. See, Dean never actually revoked my system credentials when he fired me. That's mistake number 1. HR deactivated my Slack, sure, but no one thought to immediately revoke my client portal access or wipe the shared drives I helped build. The agency used an internal platform called Canary, a cloud-based hub we developed in-house to manage campaigns, client documents, At budgets, everything. Guess who built the file tree for Canary? That would be me. So when I got home, I didn't touch anything for 2 days. I drank bourbon. I listened to silence. Then on the third day, I fired up my laptop and realized my login still worked. Not just read-only. Full admin privileges. I stared at the screen for a good 20 minutes, half expecting the access to be yanked mid-scroll. But it stayed. And as I poked around, it hit me. I wasn't looking at a vault. I was looking at leverage. Every budget proposal I'd written. Every quarterly report. Every client satisfaction metric. Even the pitch decks we developed for prospective leads, all of it was sitting right there, untouched. And worse? Dean and Brandon had started uploading new files under my old folder tree, like they didn't even bother retagging anything under a new structure. They thought they were safe. That I was too weak, too defeated to do anything. So I downloaded everything. Not maliciously. Not to leak. Not yet. I just wanted to keep a record. The whole time, I kept thinking, if they come after me for some made-up reason, this is my insurance. But something else happened. As I read through notes and saw Dean's edits on client strategy docs, I realized something horrifying. They didn't know what they were doing. Dean had started rewriting our legacy strategies with pure buzzword nonsense. Brandon had messed up a multi-million-dollar spend allocation on one of our long-time accounts, moving it to the wrong demographic entirely. The target audience was retirees, and Brandon had them running banner ads on his sports Twitch streams. That account? Worth $1.8 million annually. This wasn't just carelessness. This was a slow-burning disaster, and no one at Hale and Cove saw it coming. That's when the idea started forming. If they wanted to wipe away my contribution, fine. But I wasn't about to let them profit off my work while tanking clients I cared about for a decade. So I made a list. A very specific list. Client accounts where I was the sole point of contact. These were relationships built over lunches, late-night phone calls, random weekend emergencies. Some of them sent me Christmas cards. A few had my personal number. These people didn't work with Hale and Cove. They worked with me. And most of them didn't even know I was gone yet. So I reached out. I started with Kendra at Safeco Commercial Lending, one of my favorite clients. We'd worked together for 6 years. Hey Kendra, just wanted to give you a heads up that I'm no longer at Hale and Cove. Not sure if they told you yet. Just wanted to thank you for all the great work we did together. Her reply came within minutes. What the hell? They didn't say anything. We were supposed to have a campaign refresh call next week with you. Who do I talk to now? I waited, then wrote back. They'll probably have someone named Brandon reach out. Just, fair warning. 2 hours later she called me. Turns out they'd already noticed something was off. Brandon had emailed them earlier in the week and asked about running some fresh Gen Z concepts. Safeco's core customer base is made up of business owners aged 45 to 70. Brandon had suggested TikTok ads, a giveaway campaign involving NFTs, and wanted to streamline the brand vibe. Kendra was fuming. I knew something weird was going on. He referred to our product suite as a vibe buffet. I thought it was some prank. 1 call turned into 3. 3 into 9. By the end of the week, I'd spoken with 11 former clients. All of them had no idea I'd been terminated. And every one of them asked me the same thing. Where are you going next? So I lied a little. Told them I was exploring consulting for a bit. A few offered to move with me immediately. I said no for now. But that planted the seed. Then came the nuclear moment. One of the newer clients, Meridian Insurance, called me to say Brandon had straight up reused one of my decks on a Zoom call with them. Same color scheme. Same graphs. Hell, even the notes I'd scribbled into the margins were still there. They asked, did you know he was going to do that? I said no. I wanted to say more. But I knew better. Because if I was going to burn this bridge, I was going to watch it collapse in slow motion, piece by piece, on my terms. By now I had 11 clients on my side, 2 full copies of Canary's internal campaign data on a password-protected drive, and a slowly boiling desire to see Dean and Brandon eat their own incompetence on live display. But revenge, my friends, isn't just a strike, it's performance art. And I didn't want to just blow up the house. I wanted to sell them the Matchbox, sit front row, and have them thank me afterward. So when Melinda, one of my closest contacts at Alder and Grove Mutual, told me Hale and Cove had reached out to present a reimagined 2024 campaign vision, I saw the opening. Are you going to be there? She asked, a bit confused. Nope, I said, smiling so hard my face hurt. But you definitely should go. The meeting was set for Thursday, 3 p.m. In person. In their glass conference room, The one with the sliding barn doors and fake reclaimed wood tables. Classic startup chic. Melinda invited me to coffee earlier that day, just to catch up, and let slip that Brandon would be leading the pitch himself. I nearly spit out my drink. Brandon, who once asked me how to turn on PowerPoint's dark mode, was going to pitch a six-figure media strategy to a client who had survived 3 recessions and still used the word telecopy, unironically. Oh, this was going to be golden. Now, I didn't have access to Hale & Co.'s meeting invites anymore, but I did know how their security badges worked, and I still had mine. See, Hale & Co.'s entire building used a third-party keycard system, and while they'd removed my email access, no one had ever collected my physical badge. Probably because Dean assumed I'd move on like a professional. Sure, Dean. Let's pretend I didn't help write the employee exit checklist myself. So, I dressed up. Nice slacks. Crisp button-down. Jacket. I looked like a consultant who charged $500 per hour to say things like maximize engagement through cross-platform synergy. I timed it perfectly, walked in at 3:04 p.m. while the receptionist was distracted with Uber Eats, and casually strolled past security like I still owned the place. I didn't go to the conference room. I went to the break room directly behind it, where a one-way glass panel faced the entire room. I sat down with a LaCroix from the fridge and watched it all unfold. From my secret perch, I saw Melinda seated with 2 of her colleagues, all in their mid-50s, with notepads and polite smiles. Brandon walked in 5 minutes late, laptop under his arm, smirking like he just landed an audition for The Apprentice, Dunning-Kruger edition. Dean followed behind him, looking nervous. He kept wiping his glasses and checking his watch, like somehow that would change what was about to happen. Brandon kicked off the meeting. I couldn't hear him, but I didn't need to. His slides said it all. Slide 1. A TikTok logo spinning in 3D. Slide 2. The words millennials are out. Gen Z is in Comic Sans. Slide 3. We're going to Virality Town. Yes, Virality Town. Like it was a vacation destination. I almost snorted LaCroix out my nose. Melinda didn't laugh, but she did shift in her seat. One of her colleagues began furiously taking notes, probably so they could use this as an internal case study on what not to do. Then Brandon did the thing that sealed his fate. He pitched a rebrand. Without asking them. The Alder and Grove logo, unchanged for 27 years, had been replaced on his mock-up with some kind of lowercase word mark in bubblegum pink, complete with a new tagline. Grow with the glow. I wish I were kidding. Melinda's expression didn't change, but her colleague leaned over and whispered something to her. She nodded once, and then she pulled out a second folder, one with my name on it. That's when I knew. They brought my old reports to compare. Brandon kept rambling, pointing at graphics, using phrases like digital feng shui and multi-touch dopamine triggers. At one point, I think he compared social media impressions to bending reality. Then Dean stepped in, tried to smooth things over by using words like synergy and vision realignment. It didn't work. When the presentation ended, Melinda shook their hands politely and said, "We'll need some time to review this." And they left. 5 minutes later, Dean came into the break room. He didn't see me at first. I was tucked behind a half wall near the back. He opened the fridge, grabbed a Red Bull, and mumbled, "We're so screwed." Then he saw me. We locked eyes. I didn't say a word, just smiled and took a slow sip of my drink. He froze. His eyes flicked to my badge, to the one-way glass. Back to me. "You don't work here anymore," he said, voice sharp. "Just visiting," I replied. Wanted to see the new vision in action. He walked out without another word. And later that night, Melinda called me. "That was the most insulting meeting I've ever sat through," she said, bluntly. "I want to bring our business to you. Tell me when you're ready." That was client number 12. And it wouldn't stop there. I never intended to start my own agency. Not because I lacked the ambition, I just didn't think I'd be doing it out of spite. But sometimes life opens a door for you, right after it slams another one on the smug face of your ex-manager. After Brandon's humiliating Grow with the Glow pitch, the phone calls started coming in. Not 1 or 2. 8. In 3 days. By Monday morning, I had over a dozen voicemails. The pattern was the same. "Hey Mark, I heard what happened. We'd like to follow you. What's your new setup look like? If you're freelancing or consulting, send us your rate sheet. We've already emailed Hale and Cove to terminate. We'd rather work with you." Some didn't even ask. They just informed me they were transferring their media plans over to my name. One client, the CEO of a regional auto group, said bluntly, I didn't hire a firm. I hired you. They lost you. That's their mistake. At first, I tried to downplay it. I wasn't ready. I was still licking my wounds, sleeping like crap, stress-eating takeout, and plotting angry text drafts I never sent. But then I did some math. If even 4 of the dozen interested clients came with me, I'd have more retainer income than I made at Hale and Cove. If 6 came, I'd double it. And if 10 or more followed, I'd not only be free, I'd win. So, I called an old friend, Claire Tran, a freelancer I'd worked with years ago, branding genius, spreadsheet monster, one-woman army of logistics. She'd been running her own boutique creative outfit and had once joked, "If you ever bail from that circus you're in, let's build something that doesn't suck." I called her that night. "Claire, I've got 12 clients who want to jump ship. You want in?" Her response? "Tell me when to show up and whether I need coffee, champagne, or both." We met the next day at a WeWork downtown, cobbled together our first service agreement templates, and got to work. Within 48 hours, we had a name, a deck, a Stripe account, and a Slack channel called Operation Cutcord. We called the agency Harbolite because, unlike Hale and Cove, we weren't trying to be flashy. We wanted to be solid, visible, and safe to dock at. And our first client? Meridian Insurance, the very same one Brandon tried to TikTok into the Stone Age. Their director of marketing wired our retainer the same afternoon we sent over the paperwork. Over the next 10 days, 9 more clients officially signed. That's $1.2 million in recurring contracts, more than triple my old salary. And I wasn't even close to full capacity. But the best part? The defections weren't quiet. Every time a client left Hale and Cove, their legal team tried damage control. I know this because multiple clients forwarded me the exact same canned response. "We are disappointed to see you go, but wish you success. Please note that any assets or materials developed under our service remain proprietary." Cute. Unfortunately for them, I built 80% of that proprietary content myself, using third-party tools the clients already had full rights to. Dean tried to lawyer his way into gatekeeping work that wasn't even his. Brandon, from what I heard, tried to convince clients I was unstable and disgruntled. That one backfired. Because someone, I don't know who, honest, leaked a recording of Brandon's Alder and Grove presentation to a couple of industry contacts. 3 days later, it was circulating in a private marketing Slack with over 600 agency folks. I didn't even know until Claire sent me a message. You're going viral in the most corporate way possible." Someone uploaded Brandon's pitch. It's a disaster. In the clip, he mispronounces SEO. He calls KPIs kippies. He compares a rebrand to changing your underwear, but, emotionally. It was excruciating. And it only got worse. One of my old colleagues, let's call him Jay, messaged me. "Dude, half the office is gone." I just walked past Dean's office, and he was on the phone screaming. Brandon looked like he'd cried. Apparently, the client churn got so bad that the partners at Hale and Cove called an emergency review. There was talk of a formal audit, and more than a few whispers that Brandon was going to be moved to a different department. I'd love to say I felt bad. I didn't. These people tossed me out like garbage and gave my legacy to a failed internship in cargo sneakers. I'd earned this. But I wasn't done. Because I had one last surprise. Something I'd held back, unsure of whether to use it. Remember that Canary access? I'd been archiving things. Not maliciously, but, well, thoroughly. And I had emails, internal notes, campaign diagnostics, even an early pitch doc where Dean had tried to spin one of my strategies as his own, months before I left. I hadn't touched it. Not yet. But now that they were bleeding, now that the partners were scared, it was time to let the truth float to the top. Up until this point, I hadn't really played dirty. Sure, I'd contacted old clients, my clients, and sure, I let Dean and Brandon implode on their own egos. But I hadn't crossed any lines. But there's something about watching a house of cards sway in the wind that makes you want to blow. Just a little. And then Dean handed me the reason. Remember how Hale and Cove tried to send out legal threats about clients leaving? Some of those emails included a clause about ongoing proprietary obligations, claiming that any ideas developed under my tenure were their IP. Cute bluff, especially considering I had a document on my hard drive titled HNC Ownership of Conceptual IP, Strategy Proposal Draft V3_Final 1.docs. The one where Dean literally annotated my proposal for Meridian Insurance with. Marked all of this, but we'll present it as collaborative ideation. Let's scrub his name from slide 12. Yeah, Scrub that, Dean. See, I'd been careful. Not because I was scared, because I was patient. And with Harbalite gaining steam, clients jumping ship, and Brandon slowly becoming a meme in industry circles, I realized I had leverage. Not just over the company, but over the narrative. So I made a decision. I didn't leak the files directly. I sent them to someone who would. Her name's Carmen, and she runs an industry newsletter called The Brief. 70,000 subscribers. Think of her like the gossip columnist of the marketing world, except instead of celebrities, she tears apart ad agencies that pull shady corporate moves. I sent her a tip. If you're curious about Hale & Cove's leadership tactics, check out the attached Canary export, especially the Meridian doc and the pitch meeting notes from February 3rd. I didn't include my name, just a burner email. But Carmen's too sharp not to connect dots. Still, she ran the story like clockwork, bless her soul. When innovation meets nepotism, a case study in strategic sabotage. It hit her newsletter that Thursday morning. Within hours, LinkedIn was buzzing. Reddit/r/marketing subreddit picked it up. So did Adweek's side blog. The story didn't name names, just described a well-known Northwest firm that ousted a senior strategist to replace him with a junior family member who presented Gen Z-focused rebrands to a 60-plus financial base. The pitch slides were included in the article. I nearly cried laughing. Dean tried to control the bleeding. He sent out an all-staff email claiming the article was a distorted view and that Hale & Cove remained committed to strategic integrity and modern leadership. Jay, my former colleague, forwarded me that email with the subject line. LMAO. Dean's doing triage with a napkin. But that wasn't the best part. No, the best part came that Friday morning when my phone rang. Dean was calling me. I stared at the screen like it had grown legs. Part of me wanted to decline. Block him. Let him rot. But another part, the part that remembered being fired in that soulless conference room like an afterthought, wanted to hear his voice tremble. So I picked up. Mark, he said, low and tight, I think we need to talk. I didn't respond right away. Look, he continued, I know things ended badly, but there's been misinformation. That article, the emails, it's all taken out of context. God, he sounded tired, humbled, like a man who just realized he bet the house on a three-legged horse and it broke its own leg. I'm not sure what you're implying, I said, keeping my voice neutral. We just want to move forward. If there's anything you're in possession of that you shouldn't be, now's the time to come to the table. There it was. The threat. Polished, indirect, but very real. So I smiled into the phone and said, funny. I was just thinking the same thing. About coming to the table. I let the silence stretch. Because I've got 12 clients sitting at my table now. And they brought their wallets. Then I hung up. Did he call back? Nope. Did his firm send another legal threat? Nada. They were too busy trying to survive. Over the next 2 weeks, for more clients left Hale & Cove. They tried hiring a crisis PR firm. It didn't help. They tried offering deep discounts to keep clients. That only made them look desperate. And Brandon? He changed his LinkedIn bio to freelance digital strategist, removed every mention of Hale & Cove, and reposted a Gary Vee quote about failure being fertilizer. Good. Let it grow you, Brandon. Grow you all the way into unemployment. Revenge isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet. A slow, satisfying exhale after the storm passes and your life starts to feel yours again. After Dean's panic call and Brandon's social media vanishing act, I figured Hale & Cove was running on fumes. But the industry has a way of confirming the fall of titans in the most poetic ways possible. 3 weeks later, I was sitting on a patio with Claire, sipping iced coffee between calls, when she pulled up her phone and went, "Oh my God. Look at this." Hale & Cove's website was down. Not under maintenance, just gone. Their LinkedIn page had gone silent. The receptionist's email was bouncing. Even their Google My Business page listed the office as permanently closed. I texted Jay, just in case it was an elaborate rebrand or a data migration. He replied with, "Nah, it's over. The partners pulled out. They're dissolving the agency." Poof. 11 years of my life, erased in 6 months by a man with shiny teeth and a nephew who thought branding meant adding emojis to email subject lines. But somehow, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel smug. I felt done. Because here's the part no one tells you. Revenge is addictive, but peace? Peace is freedom. Harbalite has grown faster than I ever planned. Within 4 months, we had 18 clients, 2 part-time hires, and a waiting list. Claire is now my business partner. We joke that she's the CFO, Chief Fire Extinguisher Officer, because she handles everything that keeps the business from combusting. We rent a floor in a building that's actually 3 blocks from Hale and Cove's old office, which still sits empty. Sometimes I walk past it at night just to remember how fast an empire can fall when it's built on ego. Clients are happy. We don't do forced buzzwords. No mandatory cool. No nonsense campaigns to win Gen Z hearts with AI and glitter fonts. We just do good work. I even heard through the grapevine that Brandon tried to interview at one of our former clients. Apparently, he listed executive-level strategic ideation on his resume. They ghosted him. Dean? I have no clue. I heard he took a consulting gig in Denver. His LinkedIn now says advisor, mentor, transformation leader. Same empty words, different zip code. And me? I wake up with no one to impress. I work with people I like on projects that matter, with clients who trust me because I treat them like humans, not revenue streams. The money's better. The sleep is better. I even picked up painting again. But the real victory? I don't carry bitterness anymore. Because the best revenge isn't watching someone fall. It's rising so far above them that they can't even reach you anymore. Not with their titles, their pettiness, or their sad little nephew. So to Dean, wherever you are, thanks. You freed me. You just didn't mean to.